I spent 2 memorable days with Justice Ginsburg in September of 2016. She invited CBS Sunday Morning into her apartment and into her chambers at the Supreme Court. She also let us tag along on a trip to the opera. No matter what is said of her jurisprudence, she lived a remarkable life defined by strength, intelligence, and determination. Here is our profile of Ruth Bader Ginsburg from 4 years ago.
You saw my collection of collars?
That is beautiful. You're really pushing the boundaries.
Yes. This is my dissenting collar.
Why?
It's black and grim.
But it sparkles too, so it gets attention. In fashion, that's known as a statement piece. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is diminutive, but looms large as a powerful liberal voice on the United States Supreme Court, appointed by Bill Clinton in 1993.
This nominee is a person of immense character.
At 83, Ginsburg is now the oldest sitting justice, known among fans, including the president, as the notorious RBG. And, along with Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor, one of 3 women on the bench, which strikes her as not nearly enough.
People ask me, when would you be satisfied with the number of women on the court? When there are 9. For most of the country's history, they were all white men.
In fact, the Supreme Court was a men's club for 192 years, until Sandra Day O'Connor was appointed by Ronald Reagan in 1981. The pinnacle of a law career, you have achieved it. But I don't think it was by dint of luck.
What is this song from My Fair Lady? A little bit of luck. I had more than a little bit of luck.
My Own Words is her first book as a Supreme Court justice. She takes us through a life of achievement and loss. 2 days before Ginsburg graduated in 1950, valedictorian from James Madison High School in Brooklyn, her mother Celia died.
That was taken in 1946. She had cancer, and it lingered for many years.
Her mother's influence has been enduring.
She said 2 things: be a lady, be independent. Be a lady meant don't give way to emotions that sap your energy, like anger. Take a deep breath and speak calmly. Whether it's on camera or not, I want you to see the portrait of Marty. This is typical Marty.
Why do you say typical Marty?
Because he's relaxed, he's reading a good book, he is underdressed.
She met Martin Ginsburg on a blind date at Cornell, graduated and married in 1954, had her first child in 55, and entered law school in 56. After 2 years at Harvard, Ginsburg transferred to Columbia and graduated first in her class.
Tied for first.
We'll call that first. But she didn't get a single offer from a New York law firm.
I had 3 strikes against me. 1, I was Jewish. 2, I was a woman. But the killer was I was the mother of a 4-year-old child.
You graduated first in your class. Didn't that say something about your ability to be both a mother and the best?
It should have.
And later, she'd have a son, James.
But what if? What if you'd had that career? You and I wouldn't be talking today.
You're exactly right. And my dear colleague, Sandra Day O'Connor, put that very well. She said, if Ruth and I came of age at a time when there was no discrimination against women, we would be retired partners in a major law firm.
Instead, Ginsburg became a law professor at Rutgers University, groundbreaking in the 1960s. In the early 70s, she wrote the first Supreme Court brief on gender discrimination.
I called 1972 the year of the woman.
In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortion.
But ask her today about that historic Roe v. Wade decision, and you might be surprised.
Better to go step by step and have a series of decisions rather than have one decision that made every law of every state, even the most liberal, unconstitutional. Too giant a stride. There are many people who disagree with me, who say that the backlash would have occurred in any event, and we will never know.
You've lived here since
1980.
1980.
Here's something you'll rarely see, a Supreme Court justice at home.
I'm Not surprised to find in your apartment shelves and shelves and shelves of books. You would expect that. Maybe what you wouldn't expect are the shelves and shelves of cookbooks.
A tax law expert and gourmet chef, Martin Ginsburg, who died in 2010, collected scores of cookbooks. She had only one.
I had a book called The 60-Minute Chef. If you started the minute you walked through the door, it would be on the table within 60 minutes. I had 7 things that I made. We went in rotation. When I got to number 7, we went back to number 1.
That is, until her daughter Jane suggested she retire from the kitchen.
It came to her that Daddy's cooking was ever so much better than Mother's. Why shouldn't Daddy cook every day?
Your feelings weren't hurt.
Not in the least. Not in the least. Having phased me out of the kitchen, she feels responsibility to make sure I'm properly fed.
Today, her daughter Jane does the cooking.
If I pulled it out, you'd see it's filled with individual dinners.
Once a month, the Columbia law professor
I want to pull it out.
fills her mother's freezer.
So, and she's got each one labeled. This is rockfish with lemon,
And this one,
shrimp, and squid with saffron tomato sauce.
you eat well.
She has had health issues. In 1999, she battled colorectal cancer, then pancreatic cancer a decade later. She never missed a day on the bench.
Justice O'Connor had set the model. She was on the bench 9 days after her surgery. She said, now, Ruth, have your chemotherapy on a Friday. That way you have the weekend to get over it.
And get this, Ginsburg does 20 push-ups a day.
You do marine push-ups.
There's something that's harder for me than push-up, and my trainer calls it the plank. You're on your stomach. I do it for 30 seconds, and then breathe, and then another 30 seconds.
She might enjoy wine with dinner, which she says is why she was caught dozing during last year's State of the Union address.
How much sleep do you get?
That depends the season. I get very little sleep when the court is sitting. I stay up as long as is necessary for me to feel comfortable that I have a solid grasp on the case. So I can get by to not more than 4 hours.
She's famously a
how
workaholic
collegial
and says
is the
she
court
loves the court.
Today.
Most collegial place I've ever worked. I think we understand that for the court to work well, we have to not only respect but genuinely like each other. And I think
But this
all the
summer,
members of the
she overstepped her
current court-
own sense of judicial propriety when she called Donald Trump, among other things, a faker. When asked about a Trump presidency, she said, for the court, it could be, I don't even want to contemplate that. Trump tweeted a response. Justice Ginsburg of the U.S. Supreme Court has embarrassed all by making very dumb political statements about me. Her mind is shot. Resign. Ginsburg subsequently issued a statement regretting her ill-advised remarks. And that's where she'd like to leave it.
Judges should not talk about political candidates. And the press has blown this up out of all proportion. So I would prefer not to add anything to what I have already said.
Earlier this year, the court lost one of its most conservative voices, the brilliant and bombastic Antonin Scalia. And Ginsburg lost one of her closest friends.
Even when we were on opposite sides, he might call me and say, Ruth, I'm not with you, but wouldn't this be a better word than the one that I had?
He would help you strengthen
Yeah.
your own argument.
And I did the same thing with him.
The best of buddies, they traveled and celebrated New Year's Eve together.
We are different.
And their mutual passion for the opera inspired an opera written about them. Last Monday, the first Monday in October, court was back in session.
That almost all of my
Though many of her most ardent admirers may argue it's time to step down.
I don't think that a justice should have uppermost in her mind. A Democratic president appointed me, so I must leave to be sure that another Democratic president can appoint my successor. I will do this job as long as I feel that I can do it full steam. At my age, you have to take it year by year. So this year, I know I'm fine. What will be next year or the next year, I can't predict.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg was consistently one of the U.S. Supreme Court's moderate to liberal members. First as a lawyer, then a judge and a justice, she believed the Constitution guaranteed women greater rights.
Over the course of now over 2 centuries, it has grown and developed so that more and more people are included in that concept, we the people.
Rejected after law school for a Supreme Court clerkship because she was a woman, she began her legal career as a law professor and pioneering advocate for women's legal rights, successfully arguing a string of cases before the Supreme Court that made it easier to sue for sex discrimination. It was President Carter who first appointed her to be a federal judge.
She has genuinely distinguished herself.
Then in 1993, President Clinton put her on the Supreme Court, making her the second woman justice.
It contributes to the end of the days when women, at least half the talent pool in our society, appear in high places only as one-at-a-time performers.
At her confirmation hearing, she clearly stated her support for the right to abortion.
This is something central to a woman's life, to her dignity.
And as a justice, she voted to uphold abortion rights. She wrote the court's opinion putting an end to the men-only policy at VMI, the Virginia Military Institute, saying it was based on outmoded stereotypes. She joined the court's majorities in striking down the death penalty for juveniles and in ruling that, quote, death is not a suitable punishment for a mentally retarded criminal. She also voted to roll back Bush administration policies in the war on terror. A blistering opinion in a case about equal pay for women renewed her standing as a feminist icon.
We welcome today Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
She was nicknamed Notorious RBG, a play on a rapper's name, and featured in a documentary movie.
I am 84 years old and everyone wants to take a picture with me.
She married a fellow student in college, Martin Ginsburg. They had 2 children. Years later, she recalled receiving some practical advice on her wedding day.
It pays, Mother said, it pays sometimes to be a little deaf. I have followed that advice with only occasional lapses, not only at home, but in the places I have worked, and even in relating to my colleagues at the Supreme Court.
A passionate opera fan, she appeared in several Washington productions, in full costume but in silent roles. Regular checkups and early intervention helped her recover from 3 surgeries for colon, pancreatic, and lung cancer. And doctors inserted a stent after discovering blockage in a heart artery. She missed surprisingly few days on the bench. But now the court's most powerful liberal justice is gone. Pete Williams, NBC News at the Supreme Court.